To save a little time, ladies and gentlemen, I worked through some things on this video to start for our Chapter 6 exam review for 2017-18. The first thing is to find your zeros, and to find zeros, you set each of these terms equal to 0. When I set this equal to 0, I just minus 4 to get negative 4. When I set this equal to 0, I showed this up here, I would minus the 3 to get 2x equals negative 3, and divide to get negative 3 over 2, which is negative 1.5. And then for any time you see a monomial, it's always 0, and here's really the reason why. If I do this, and I divide both sides by negative 2, I get to here, and the cube root of 0 would just give me 0, and it'd still be 0. So I plotted those points here, and then I got to look at total power. What I failed to realize when I started going through this the first time is this is negative because there's a negative there. We had rules, and maybe you want to write these down on your cheat sheet, that if it's positive, odd, and even, odd would start down and end up. Even would start up and end up. So if it's positive, it always ends up. And if it's negative, it always ends down. So this is based again on the total power. If it's odd, it starts up and ends down. If it's even, it starts down and ends down again, because all negatives will end down. So this is odd and negative. So I'm going to use odd negative rules. And I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to end down here. And I started doing this, and I went in that awkward position that it shouldn't have been. It should have been in this position. So I go to each point. Negative 4 is this point, and that's even. So I'm going to bounce off that. Start coming to negative 3/2, negative 1.5, and it's even right there. So I need to bounce off that. And then at 0, I have to go through it, which makes sense because if I don't go through it, I don't end up where my arrow should be. So I go through it, and there is my graph. Okay. From this, I can do all this work over here. I can start putting my zeros here, which were in order, like that. I can say negative infinity is over here and infinity is over here. And before the graph, is it positive or negative? So just on this part, it's above the x-axis. It's above the x-axis. It's above the x-axis. Then it's below the x-axis. So now I have all my intervals. It's positive, pretty much, most of the graph. And then it's negative from just 0 to infinity, okay? Just based from our graph. We're going to use that for this problem down below as well. So first of all, we state our zeros. Our zeros are at negative 4, 0, 2, and 4. And then multiplicity, again, that means even or odd. Probably something you want to write on your cheat sheet as well, okay? So at each of these points, what makes them even or odd? Remember, if they're even, they bounce off. If they're odd, they go through. So there it bounces off. So that's an even one. But the rest of these, it goes straight through. So the rest of these are odd. And a lot of you lost points on your quiz for not doing that part of it. Okay. Now for these points, I'm just going to rewrite those numbers. They're in order. Positive or negative again. This part here, below, then above, then below, then above, which gives me positive and negative intervals. And I'm terrible at writing infinity, so bear with me. Okay. So there's that. On to the next, the maxima, minima. Maximas are the tops of those vertexes. Minimas are the bottoms of those vertexes. So there's a maxima here, and there's a maxima here. There's a minima right there, and there's a minima right there. So there's multiple maxima and minima. The maximas are at x equals negative 4 and at x equals 1. The minimas are x equals, I think if you remember, we called that negative 2.8 and positive 3. Now I've got those. I can use my number line and determine where it's increasing and decreasing. So from negative infinity to negative 4, it is going uphill. So it is increasing. So that's there, then it's decreasing, and these always alternate, right? Decreasing to the min, increasing to the max, decreasing to the min, increasing from there. Okay, so that tells me my increasing and decreasing, so get those in there a minute. And there's that. Okay. Moving on to the next page. Some of this stuff is just factoring, so if you don't remember how to factor, this might be a little bit of a hassle for you. So you are just factoring, so when it has a squared, look for a GCF, there's not one. Look for a prime number, there is one. And I'm just going to start writing answers in here. I need to find the factors of 5, which are 5 and 1, and the factors of 10, which are 1 and 10, or 2 and 5. And it just so happens that 2 and 5 works because this is 2x, and that's 25x. To get that positive 23, I need that, so that becomes that. And that's it, that's my answer. This is a GCF problem. Excuse me. But I can take that a step further. If you remember, that's x plus 9, x minus 9, and that is my final answer on that one. This is a really easy one, hopefully. X and x, factors of 54 are 9 and 6. That will give me a negative 54 and a positive 3 when I FOIL the inside and outside. This is just 4x plus 5, 4x minus 5. Need to recognize difference of squares, which is very similar to what this is. This is a GCF problem. I could take a 4 out of each, and I can take an x squared out of each. And when I do that, I get x squared plus 8x plus 12, which I can take a step further. And I'm going to make you do that on the exam too. Plus 6 plus 2, done. Okay? These problems here, if you don't remember, are AB, a squared, AB, b squared, and the same opposite plus, SOP. Okay, for each one of those problems. So the cube root of this is x, and the cube root of this is 4. The cube root of this is 2x. The cube root of that is 5. And then I know I'm going to have my trinomial out here, and I'll do same opposite plus in the end. So this squared is that, this squared is that, times them together to get the middle. This squared is 2x times 2x, which is 4x squared. This squared goes here, times them together to get the middle. And then it's whatever this symbol is, same opposite plus, same opposite plus. Done. Okay. Down at the bottom, when you're asked to simplify these problems, you are trying to break them down into stuff that you can and cannot take the square roots of. And then, of course, that -1. Remember, the square root of -1 equals I. You might want to write that on your cheat sheet. And also remember that I squared equals -1. Okay, these will kind of come into play through this section. So in this problem, I get 6 plus the square root of 16, which is 4, the square root of -1, which is I, and the square root of 2, which I can't do, so I just leave it as such. Okay? Similarly here, this is 9 and 5 and -1. So -4 plus the square root of 9, which is 3, the square root of -1, which is I, and the square root of 5, which I can't do. And don't try and combine them. One's got an I, one doesn't. We can't combine that. This is not a FOIL problem. This is a distribute this negative sign into each. So this is really 5 plus 6i distributed plus 3 minus 4i, and then just combine like terms. 5 plus 3 is 8. 6i minus 4i is 2i. Same thing here. Again, distribute the negative. So I get 8 minus 4i minus 5 plus 3i. Combine your like terms to get 3 minus I. That's it. This is a FOIL problem, and it's going to be kind of key that you remember the I squared equals -1, because when I FOIL those, I get here, this, and that is 10I squared. Now, what is I squared again? That's -1 times -10. Gives me a positive 10 here. When I add to that, it gives me 28. These here, I can combine my like terms to get minus 3i. Same thing here, 8i squared, 12i, minus 2i, minus 3. This is -1 times 8 is -8, plus that gives me -11. Combine those two terms to get plus 10i. Okay. Down at the bottom here, to write these out, you need to write them in that form of x minus whatever it gives you. And remember that I and square root come in pairs. I's come in pairs. Square roots do too. So this is x minus -2, which of course is plus. X minus 4, x minus -4, which of course is plus. This is x minus square root of 2. Square roots come in pairs, so x plus square root of 2, and x minus 3 is like that. X minus 4, x minus 2i, x plus 2i. And anytime you see opposites, do that first. This becomes a lot easier. If I do these together, if I do these together, and if I do these together. So this is x plus 2 times x squared minus 4x and plus 4x cancel each other out to give me minus 16. And then it's just FOIL it through. X cubed plus 2x squared minus 16x minus 32. Done. Same thing here. X squared by doing this. This times that gives me a plus x squared to 2 and a minus x squared to 2. They cancel each other out. So minus square root of 4. And a lot of people want to leave like that. But the reason that we multiply those together is because the square root of 4 simplifies. And then FOIL it out. X cubed, x cubed plus 3x squared minus 2x minus 6. Done. X minus 4 times, again, x squared. The plus minus 2xi's are going to cancel. Minus 4i squared. Which again, I squared is negative 1. So if I just cancel that out and times it here to make it positive, I have really that. And then just FOIL it out. Minus, 4x squared plus 4x minus 16. All right, next page. One more page for chapter 6, and this is most of this page. We're just doing right here on the top. Okay, if you remember when I give you factors, don't forget to write those in right away. Those are the easy points, right? I'm going to write x plus 5 and x minus 2, and there's zeros, which are 1 and negative 2, because they are the opposites when they're in that form, right? Then I just go plug it in. So remember, plug in 1 first, synthetic division. 1, negative 2, negative 15, negative 4, and 20 comes from the coefficients here. Remember we had a bar, we always drop it low on that first one, and then it's just times and add, times and add, times and add, times and add, timesing this by each one of those to get those terms and adding. And then I just go again with the next term, and that's going to give me what I need to be able to factor. So times and add, sorry, we're going to run out of a little bit of space here, and I get to there. And now this gives me, matter of fact, I'm going to write it down here, x squared minus 3x minus 10. Because I've already taken 2 x's out, so out of there gives me x cubed and then x squared. Or remember that this is remainder number x squared. Which factors to give me? Well, what I'm going to write here, x minus 5 and x plus 2, which gives me my other 2 factors. Done with that. Over here, same thing. I'm going to go a little faster now. Negative 5 through 1, 1, negative 40, negative 52, and 240. Big numbers, don't be scared. Go straight down to give me a 1. This gives me x squared minus 2x minus 24, which I can factor to x and x, 6 and 4, minus and plus to give me my zeros there, and I'm done. Okay. Same thing at the bottom, but at the bottom I didn't give you the factors to plug in, so you want to probably guess and check based on the factors of this. So plus or minus 1, 2, 4, 5, 10. Do I need to really keep going here? No, I'm not going to judge you on that. But at least you know not to try 3 or 6 or 7 and so on. I'm going to tell you the one that works here. You will have to guess and check till you find it, but it happens to be negative 1 nicely. 1. And then I'm left with x squared plus x minus 20, which is x and x, 5, 4, plus, minus. So my answers here are negative 1, because I found that to begin with. Negative 5 and positive 4. Okay. Over here, same thing. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, and 30. Again, I don't need you to find all those, but you'll probably go through 1 and negative 1 and 2, and then negative 2 is what works. And I get my resulting polynomial, and I set that so, and I get -2 because I started with that, 5, and 3. Okay. That's it for that. Come back and see me about this next problem, which is on chapter 8.